How's everybody doing today? This is Matt from Mad Boosting, and I'm going to give you guys my State of the Union. You know, our State of the Union needs a lot of improvement, especially for normal working people. Yes, I'm having a cigar right now and a drink. Because who can look at our State of the Union in a total sober state? Our State of the Union needs a lot of improvement right now. And the improvements we need are as follows. The Union needs to care about normal, everyday people, not millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires. Those seem to be the only people that the Democrats care about. They don't care about the normal working man and woman in this country. And me, I'm a car person. I really don't care about everyday politics. I'm not a politician, nor I claim to be one, but we need an improvement in our country right now. We need our country to work for us. Damn it, my cigar went out. I gotta have a good cigar for this kind of conversation. Now, I'm a car guy. I care about going fast and having fun. Kind of like the Bandit back in 1978. I like to go fast and have fun. I'm sure there's a bunch of car enthusiasts just like me that want to go fast and have fun. But with all the current administration regulations, it's hard to go fast and have fun because of catalytic converters. They invented the catalytic converter in 1975. And you know what? None of the emissions got any better. They need to look in the sky if they want to talk about emission devices and emission controls. A car probably burns through 1,000 gallons of fuel in a couple years. An aircraft burns through a couple thousand gallons of fuel in one takeoff. You take off from one of those big airports in one of those big aircraft, they take off and they burn a few thousand gallons of fuel. I used to be in the military. I served on 21 years active duty and more than 10 years of reserves. I served a whole career in the military, and I used to work on fighter aircraft. And a fighter aircraft would burn 2,500 gallons in 1 hour of flight. Now, if it was in afterburners, it burned 2,500 gallons in 15 minutes. Put that in perspective from a regular car or truck in this country. Aircraft do not have catalytic converters. They burn fuel that is very close to diesel. Jet fuel is very close to diesel in its properties. Can you imagine what a 747 would burn overseas in a flight from, say, San Francisco to Japan? It'd probably burn at least 20 or 30,000 gallons of fuel. And there's no emission devices on an aircraft. There's no emission devices that can prevent all those exhaust emissions from going right in the sky because they're already in the sky. And they always seem to ignore the aircraft. They talk about the cars, they put catalytic converters, smog pumps, and all kinds of stuff on vehicles, which if you have a good tune-up on a vehicle, you don't need a catalytic converter. Because if you have the right fuel and the right air mixture in a vehicle, it doesn't burn very much vehicle emissions. But aircraft, They have fuel that's very similar to diesel. It's just a couple more stages refined than diesel. And you all see diesels driving around. They emit all that black smoke if they're not clogged by diesel catalytic converters and exhaust systems and all the vehicles that run on diesel right now. They have smog pumps, they have EGT type of pumps, they have EGR pumps, they have things that they try to reduce the diesel emissions. However, aircraft don't have any of those things, and they burn thousands of gallons every few minutes that they're in flight. And here we are with gas and diesel engines with particle type of emission devices, diesel exhaust fluid, everything like that, which gives your diesel truck maybe 10 miles to the gallon at best. And if the diesel was uncorked, it would probably get about 30 miles to the gallon. Think about that for a minute. 30 miles to the gallon, it doesn't burn as much fuel, but with all the current emission devices on diesel trucks, damn, my cigar went out again. How about that? What an injustice. I hate it when my cigar goes out right when I'm in the middle of a great conversation. I worked on a lot of fighter aircraft during all those Gulf Wars, on the flight decks of USS Midway, USS Independence, USS Kitty Hawk, and the John C. Stennis nuclear aircraft carrier. My first 3 aircraft carriers were all driven on a diesel derivative called F-76. It's a diesel type of fuel. And I'm telling you, those aircraft carriers burn a lot of fuel. What catalytic converters? What diesel exhaust fluid? None of the military vehicles in this country, in the military, have diesel exhaust fluid. They run straight pipes, kind of like what we would like to do, to allow the diesel engine uncorked can get over 30 miles to the gallon. But the way that they have all these exhaust emission controls on diesels right now, they're lucky to see 12 miles to the gallon. Heavy duty trucks. And imagine the big rigs, they probably get less. Now, if aircraft engines are uncorked, which they are, they burn all their emissions. You can see the brown clouds in the sky when an aircraft takes off, and they burn thousands of gallons of fuel every time they take off. Now, do the math. Every aircraft at every airport in the country, try to do the math on how many gallons of jet fuel get burned all the time in this country. And they're worried about the cars. Now, if a car gets better gas mileage, it burns less fuel. It's common sense, or I call it rare sense, because it's not common anymore in this country. So, I definitely cannot be sober with a combination like this. With a conversation like this, I have to have a great cigar and a great drink in order to talk about all this garbage in this country right now. Now, they want to get everybody into electrical vehicles, and they call that green energy. However, when you dispose of a battery, or any kind of a battery, there's a lot of very caustic, hazardous material that's made from every battery. So that pretty much throws the green energy right out the window. As long as every vehicle has a great tune-up and it burns an efficient mixture of fuel and air, it's not going to create that much emissions. Same with aircraft. If they get the fuel and air mixture just right, you don't burn a lot of emissions. They need to improve the aircraft that much more in this country for the so-called green energy. Now, let's talk about climate change too, because you always hear climate change with all the liberal politicians. Okay. It's Saturday night. I have to have a great drink and a great cigar in order to talk about this kind of stuff. I like performance. So if you have a great fuel and a great air mixture in your engine, you don't burn that much emissions with catalytic converter or without. And you can imagine the fuel economy you will experience when you don't have a catalytic converter on a vehicle. You get almost 10 or 12 more miles to the gallon without those exhaust back pressure that's created by multiple catalytic converters and multiple mufflers, which prevent the exhaust from just expelling from the tailpipe. Now, if you have a turbocharger, you even clean that air that much more. That exhaust that comes from the engine drives the turbocharger, it develops less emissions. So having a turbocharged engine is very beneficial to creating better exhaust emissions. Now, I used to be a plane captain a very long time ago on the USS Midway, which is long retired since 1992. Back in my military days, every time an F-18 Hornet, a fighter jet, way back when, gets filled up, it's more than 2,500 gallons of fuel. And that fuel would be burned in about an hour and a half. And it would have to be replenished in the air in order to finish its mission. 2,500 gallons of fuel burned per hour from one fighter jet. Imagine a big 747 that goes from LAX to Narita, Japan. Can you imagine how much fuel is burned? And how many flights a day happen all around the world and burn tons, tens of thousands of jet fuel get burned, and there's no emission devices whatsoever on these jet aircraft. And they're worried about our cars. Now the cars, when you have a free-flowing intake and a free-flowing exhaust, burn less fuel, which is less emissions. And we are no way, shape, or form ready for full electric cars because our electric grid does not have the capacity to go total electronics. Now, everybody look at your electric bills right now. Are you ready for electric vehicles? I think not. Now, I have a hybrid Jeep Wrangler that has a turbocharged intercooled 4-cylinder engine, and it gets about 18 miles a gallon without including the electric motor. That's a great start. Having a hybrid vehicle has electric motors as well as a gas inline 4-cylinder engine with a turbocharger and an intercooler. Now, hybrids are a great idea because it allows both electric and gas engine, because if you run out of electric energy, you're stuck wherever you're at. You might not even have a cell phone signal when you run out of electric juice. So, having a hybrid vehicle is not a bad idea. Now, a fighter aircraft Just one fighter aircraft burns 2,500 gallons of jet fuel an hour, and that fuel is about the same properties as diesel and kerosene. Makes black clouds all over the sky, and they're worried about gas-burned gas engines in this country. So what needs to happen is exhausts need to be more free flow, intakes need to be more free flow, breathe in, breathe out. Simple philosophy. My philosophy is have a free flow intake, free flow exhaust, get the most miles per gallon from your gas engines, and we will get by just fine. We're much better than the jet engines in the sky. I was a poet and didn't know it. So, administration, make your gas engines as free flow as possible. They burn the least amount of gas. They burn the least amount of emissions. Get your gas engines running as many miles per gallon as possible. And that's how we can get by until the electric car market tells us it's time to switch to electric cars. Right now is not the time. We don't have the technology. There's states that cannot even keep the power on right now in this country. It's amazing. I have to have a good buzz and a good cigar in order to tell you like it is. Now, let's improve this country. Let's make our own fuel in this country. Let's not rely upon our enemies for fuel and oil. Let's make our own fuel and oil in this country. And that's how we can be successful until the time when electricity can meet the demands of full electric cars. Until then, we need to do everything we can to maximize fuel, hybrid technology, and electric technology. We need to do everything together. We need to use every asset we have to improve vehicles in this country. You cannot just switch to electric vehicles alone. There are many vehicles that can get 40 miles to the gallon right now. And they don't burn a fraction of the emissions that jet engines breathe right now, which many politicians have private jets that burn fuel gallons that our cars couldn't even burn in 1 year's time. And that's just one flight. One flight from a private jet burns more jet fuel than a few hundred diesels could burn in a year. So let's think about that for a moment. We have the technology to make the best fuel in the world, and we need to continue that. We have all the natural resources in the world we need to provide fuel to not only ourselves, but around the world. And our country can make money selling our clean diesel and our clean gasoline around the world. We don't need to rely on other countries for our fuel and oil. So let's, as a country, expand all the fuels that we have the capability to do. Okay? Let's make our country better. Let's use every technology we have to get better miles to the gallon on all our vehicles. Hybrid vehicles are a great idea because you have both gas and electric. You run out of electricity, you still have a gas engine to get to where you're going. Whereas full electric vehicles, you could break down in the middle of old Highway 50, which you'd be lucky to get a cell phone signal, You break down over there, you could die waiting for help. The vultures will be circling around you while you're waiting for help without a cell phone signal. So, everybody, think about that for a moment. And you guys have a great weekend and mad boosting. It's fun to stop the video after I've already made it.